Tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the 7 seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog, John Martin, as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog, John Martin, and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host, the old salty dog, John Martin, and in studio with us, the captain of our pirate ship, Mr. Ted Yoho. Good morning, Ted. How are you?
Good morning, John. I'm back in Gainesville. It's great to be here. We're at the Spurrier Gridiron Grill, and, I'm glad I don't do a sports commentator and have to talk about the Gators today.
Yeah, well, the only thing we can say, since we're in the home of Spurrier here, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, is I think I can actually say that that loss Saturday ranks up there among the worst losses that the Gators ever had. Now, they're not in contention for anything, but when you consider the weakness of Kentucky, the supposed kind of turnaround and the athletes we had, it's just sad. It's just sad.
It is, but you know what? This is a great reminder of great days, and great days can come again. But not this year, probably.
And for all Gator fans out there, especially old-timers like me and Ted, I can bring back the statement, wait till next year.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a couple of real positive things to say right off the top before we get into a little bit of a mixed bag. First of all, so I don't forget, tomorrow is Veterans Day. So I do it all the time, but I would say tomorrow, especially if you have a veteran in your family or someone you know or you run across one, at least thank them for their service, because even if you don't agree politically with me or not, we should all agree that the men and women that serve this nation and have served this nation deserve our respect.
And let me tell you how this is infiltrated throughout our country. I went to a small church yesterday, and it was San Mateo Baptist Church in San Mateo, Florida, and they asked for everybody to stand up that had either served in the military or somebody in their family. Everybody stood up. And it was just amazing because everybody has somebody that is in their family somewhere, generally, that has served in our military. So tomorrow, Veterans Day, November 11th, the 11th day of the 11th month at the 11th hour is when the celebrations and recognitions take off. So join those. There's always great events. I loved going to those when I was in Congress. So prideful of what they do at those events. So thank you for your service.
And also, keeping with that the military theme for just a moment, today, ladies and gentlemen, is the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps, man.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. I mean, unbelievable. The Marine Corps. And I say this not any disrespect to current Marines, but the Marine Corps and the military under Pete Hegseth, Bubby, is back. They are back, and the Marines, or maybe they always have been, but the Marines are the Marines that we need. They are ready to go. I saw the celebration over the weekend they had with the vice president speaking there, a Marine himself, and he basically said that now we're going to give you the tools, the support and all, that when you go into battle, you can kick A and come home safely. That's what our vice president said at the Marine Corps ball over the weekend.
Yeah, and let's hope they don't ever have to go into battle again. Walk softly, carry a big stick, and with the right leadership, we can do that. And we don't want those young Marines going off, even the old Marines going off on foreign soils, but we know they're committed and they'll be happy to do it.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, if you're congratulating a Marine either today or tomorrow on Veterans Day, there are no former Marines. Right. I just want to give you that piece, because I made that mistake many years ago, and I'll never make it again. There are no former Marines.
I got invited to speak at I got invited to speak at a lot of the Veterans Day events, and the person introducing me, the MC, introduced me as a vet. And I didn't want to have stolen valor, and I knew they knew I was a vet but not a veterinarian. So I had to clarify that in front of people. And I was happy to do that, because had I not, then my political opponents would say, oh, look, he's a stolen valor person.
And if people don't know what Ted's talking about, let me simplify it for you. Ted knows the north end of a southbound mule better than anybody I know, right?
I really do. That was probably uncalled for, but
well, we like to have a good time, man. We take our politics and our country serious, don't take ourselves all that serious, right?
That's right. God, country, and family.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, last night we had an event happen where you had a vote in the U.S. Senate, and you had, I believe it was 5 Democrats that crossed the line, if you want to call it that, and voted to move the shutdown issue forward and break basically the filibuster, if you will, of keeping the government funded. It's not the final vote. It just allows them to proceed. And the final vote, depending on, they could literally have it today, but it's most likely supposedly going to come on Wednesday, because they're probably not going to do it today, and tomorrow is Veterans Day when most of that stuff is closed down. So it looks like Wednesday. What are your general thoughts on that, Ted? Because let me just tell you right off the top, I'm still a bit skeptical that it will actually happen, but it probably will.
I think that is well-founded skepticism, the way government has not been working here in the recent years. You know, both sides are claiming victory, which I think is ridiculous. Who wins in a shutdown? Nobody wins. The American people get hurt. I stopped at a Dollar General to buy a gallon of milk yesterday, and I asked the lady, I said, how's it going? And she goes, it's going okay. She goes, I haven't been paid in 3 days. They were supposed to pay me on Friday, and it was Sunday. She hasn't paid. She goes, and I'm living in my van. And she was of gray-haired age. And, I'm thinking, we are so blessed in this country, and we have people in Washington having these silly fights. We should never have a shutdown. We should never get to this point. If they do what they're supposed to do, we would never have a shutdown. And that's the thing that, irritates me, because they become more frequent and they're lasting longer. We never had these prior to the 1970s. Congress did their job, but they're not doing that now. I'm happy they're at where they're at, but I think you're going to see more drama when it comes to the House. I hope I'm wrong, but I think you're going to see some hard nose saying we're not going to allow the vote coming up for the extension of the subsidies, which are an add-on to the Obamacare that should never have been there, but they went in there with COVID. So I'm just happy that they have made it a step closer to solving this, and let's move on, and let's pray that they come together in some kind of a consensus and do what's right for the American people and do what's right for the country.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk some more about it in a second, but let me go ahead and give you the bottom line too, just so people know about it. Even if this thing passes and they open up the government, we could experience another shutdown in January.
Sure.
Because what they voted on yesterday, and if it stays the same way, it will be a very temporary, just funding the government basically to the end of the calendar year, not the fiscal year. That's a totally different situation. So we're not totally out of the woods, shut down yet. But now the debate that I've been hearing is who, quote, won the shutdown. The only thing I know for sure, and we'll talk about the details in a minute, is that the American people didn't win the shutdown. That's for sure. And both sides, to a certain extent, Ted, are culpable in the fact that it never should come to this if they were doing the work they need to do, regardless of who's in power.
You're absolutely right. There was a bill passed in 76, I think it was. Excuse me. It was called the Budget Control Act, and it was Budget Control and Impoundment Act. And this is where Congress was supposed to do what they're supposed to do. And this goes into what Madami's saying about we're going to freeze rents and we're going to give all this stuff away free. Nixon tried to freeze a lot of things, wages and all that in America to keep prices down. It doesn't work. And so the Budget Control Act was supposed to correct that, and of course it didn't. And we've had these debt ceiling votes that come up and they don't pass them. And then the government shuts down, and they're becoming a way of running business as usual in Washington. And we, the American people in our country, are losing. We're in jeopardy. $38 trillion now in debt, just unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we mentioned it on a Friday show or not, but I can't remember. But just to talk about Madami, if you want to know how phony that guy really is, because, am I saying that he's not a communist socialist? Yeah, he is a communist socialist, but I think sometimes he's just playing a role and other people are manipulating him. Because the day after the election, he made a speech about what he was going to do his transition team. He asked for money. A guy who doesn't want money. He asked for money. He's raised almost $1 million in his transition overnight, literally. But he flew out that day. He's probably back now. But he went to the most posh resort in the Caribbean in Puerto Rico, where it's just only multimillionaires go to this place, hanging out, partying. They showed videos. He's meeting with a bunch of Muslim clerics who aren't taking a vow of poverty, by the way, in the most posh place they could be the day after his election, basically.
Yeah, New York, you guys voted him in. God bless you. It's the experiment of American politics. You have the right to do that. You also have the right to suffer the consequences of that. And I'm not asking for anybody to suffer. It's just be prepared for things, because nothing is free. It's just the story gets played over and over again throughout history, John. You think people would wise up? It'll be interesting to follow what happens in New York. Like I said, the rent controls, they've tried that over and over again. They don't work. Wage control, they've tried that. You can see what happened to California when they raised the rates to minimum wage was what, $30?
Yeah, that and
I think Madami is talking about that. It just doesn't work, and I can tell you that because Carol and I we're fairly well off. You go to a drive-in restaurant, and just to get a burger and a fry and a drink, it's over $30, and it's like I don't need to do this. I can make a better burger at home.
Well, you mentioned California and Ted and Mr. Newsom out there. He's clearly running for president. If you ever doubted about it, he held a rally in, of all places, Texas this weekend, and it was pretty well received for the people that were there and everything else. But he's definitely running for president. And right now, of course, a lot can change. If the vote were right now, I believe he probably would be the Democratic nominee. But I do think that Ocasio-Cortez, if I had to bet right now, if she were to run under the current political circumstances, I think she's ultimately going to be the Democratic nominee if things keep going like they are. And I don't know that she's even going to run, but if she does, look out.
If she put her name in the hat, Gavin Newsom wouldn't have a prayer. And it would be scary to get her in there. All you have to do is listen to what she says and her ideologies are. And these were ideologies that got rejected at the last presidential election, largely rejected. And we're at a turning point in America, and it could be a flipping point. And this is what scares me, because you look at where they're leading. That party is wanting to lead this nation. They're talking about rent controls. They're talking about wages control, tax the rich, and so they're creating class warfare, and it just doesn't work. And we've warned you over and over again, people, and we've seen this throughout history. All communists are socialists until they reach socialism, and then they flip to communism. And all you have to do is look at what Lenin did, what Stalin did, what Mao Zedong did, and the death and destruction that followed them. And America's a better country than that. And, there's a reason that our founders fought to do what we did. The interesting thing is when Madani won, and I'm way off script notes here. When he won, he was quoting founders of the Democrat Socialist parties. He was quoting sayings from Muslim clerics and activists that were anti-American. And those were the people he was quoting, instead of the founding fathers or that ideology. Excuse me. So I'm turning it back over to you.
All right. Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, the debate that's happening within the political class, if you will, and the pundits on both the left and the right is who won the shutdown. Who won the shutdown? As I say, the American people didn't. But one of the more interesting things that came out yesterday was our good old pal, Uncle Bernie, Bernard Sanders, as I like to call him, he gave a little interview or statement, and I swear it looked like he was in the bathroom, but but he was in the basement, I guess, of the Senate office building.
AI generated.
Yeah, and I don't know what he would look like AI generated, but he literally said that, that we just came off, talking about the Democrats, off one of the best weeks we've ever had, referring to the Tuesday election. And he said, but make no mistake, today is a dark day and a very bad day for America and the Democratic Party in compromising. That's what he was talking about. So
right.
It's sparked this debate within the Democratic Party. I'm not sure how much of it is real and how much of it is orchestrated, as I say, because Schumer clearly supported these guys casting their vote last night. There's no question about it. But it's going to be interesting to see how the hardcore left responds to these Democrats. And on top of that, and we were talking a little bit about it before we started the show, what is the definition of a moderate Democrat, Ted? I don't know who they are. I used to think I know what a moderate was. Maybe it's John Fetterman, but he's a radical according to the Democrats. And you got Kane, who voted for this, literally saying a month ago that our rights come from government, not from inalienable rights. I don't know who a moderate is, but do you think, so answer me that. And then also, if you can, do you think there really is going to be a genuine battle within the Democratic Party for the heart and soul of the progressive communist socialists and the moderate Democrats, if they even exist?
Wow, there's a lot there, John. I think a moderate Democrat, and it's ironic to say John Fetterman, because when he came in, we thought he was just as wacko and as far liberal progressives as they come. But when you look at that party makeup today, John Fetterman is probably one of the more sane ones. The ones that were there, like Joe Manchin, they ran him out. And so they're going to continue to run everybody out like that. I had a lot of colleagues, and they were friends that were in the Democrat Party, but the Democrat Party went after him because they were too moderate. The squad went after him, and they ran him out, like Kurt Schrader out of Oregon, several people that they just ran out because they wouldn't take a strong radical progressive stance. And so to answer your question, who are the moderates? It's John Fetterman is the only one that I can think of right now. Chris Coons isn't. I worked with Chris Coons when we passed the BUILD Act, and he's following lockstep with the Democrats. And as you said, Bernie said it was a great weekend. We're celebrating the great victories we had. Well, keep in mind those were all three strongly Democrat areas. No Republican was very unlikely to win in any of those races. And I'm not using that as an excuse. And then they had some very poor candidates when you look at the New York mayor's race. And then Bernie goes on to say, but I fear for where we're heading. And he's fear for where he's heading because that right there played his hand. He was happy with the government shutdown that the Democrats caused that they refused to negotiate on. And he didn't like that. And so they're going to go after any of these people any of the 6 Democrats that voted for that. I had that list here, but anyways.
Yeah, absolutely.
They broke the filibuster. The filibuster is, anybody can get up and start talking in the Senate, and they have a filibuster rule where you can speak as long as you want. And, of course, we saw the different senators do that. That guy that got arrested at the ICE thing, Padilla, he spoke and he did a filibuster. Cory Booker did, and then the one that always sticks in everybody's mind, if you're my age, is Jimmy Stewart in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and that's where they get up and they stop any legislative action as long as they're talking, and they can rotate in that talking. And so that's the filibuster one way. The other way is just refuse to vote on something. And that's where the president wanted to break the filibuster, and it's a bad precedent to do that. Because if you do it once on the Republican side, the Democrats will say, we're going to do it too. And so they didn't do it, but they brought it to an end because they allowed a vote.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's come back. We'll take a quick commercial break and come back and talk a little bit about the filibuster procedure itself. And because President Trump is advocating to break it, and we'll get into some of that in just a moment. So we'll take a brief break right now. Please support our sponsors. If you'd like to be one, look at the little tagline that says Contact Freddie and become a sponsor of our show. Like what we're doing, share it far and wide. Take us to break, Ted.
No, I appreciate it. And we look forward to talking to you about these things. And our goal is to educate, motivate, or activate and motivate.
Absolutely. Educate, motivate, activate, and not be frustrated.
That's my dyslexia.
That's okay. We'll be right back.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Melvin Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Ward, that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. Wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
And we're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host, John Martin, and the captain of our ship, Ted Yoho. When we went to break, we were talking about the impending maybe government shutdown ending, depending on how they end up voting on probably Wednesday. It's not a guarantee, and it's a short-term bill, if you will, that we could be in a shutdown again after the first of the year again. And so now we want to move into a little bit about the filibuster itself, because, you know, President Trump is advocating that the Republicans break the filibuster now. So, Ted, give us a little history of the filibuster itself, and then we'll get into whether or not it should be broken.
Yeah, the filibuster has just been a tool that they've used in the Senate that allows for unlimited debate, and it's loosely defined for action. It's designed to prolong debate and delay or prevent a vote on a bill, resolution, amendment, or the other debatable question. And they do this so that there's backroom deals being done, and they negotiate, but heck, after 40 days, they hadn't done real well. And prior to 1917, the Senate rules did not provide for a way to end the debate and force a vote on a measure. And that year they came up with what that procedure called cloture. And it was interesting because they made it hard to do. They needed 2/3 of the majority to vote to end a filibuster. But in 75, they didn't like the results of that, so they reduced it from 66 votes down to 60 votes. And, it's American politics. And, John, this comes from, we're in this position today because the Senate and the House don't pass their 12 appropriation bills on time and get them passed out and then work on the nation's business to start reforming these programs and get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse that everybody talks about. And they say, we want that, we want accountability, but they don't.
What's interesting to me, Ted, and as you know, you always kind of spark things.
That's my job.
The whole debate about the shutdown, who won the debate, about the filibuster, and who, everybody up there, for the most part, is playing politics.
Absolutely.
One way or another, to retain power, to gain power, to push themselves forward, all kind of different agendas. Interesting enough, this is my perspective, the only one that really isn't playing politics really about it is actually the president. The president is looking at the power to push forward his agenda, America first, all that. Whether or not you agree with his agenda is another thing. But I think the president, and this is why he, in my opinion, I'd like to get your thoughts on it, Ted, that he's pushing to end the filibuster is because he's thinking short term and long term in the sense that he believes that the only chance that America has for the future is if he can get America First, the MAGA agenda done over the next 3 years. When I say this, and I'll turn it over to you, I'm not saying he doesn't trust other Republicans down the line, but he doesn't trust the system to keep someone like him going after he's out of office. And he's looking at it as it's now or never to save America. That's kind of how I see it.
No, you're absolutely right. And he does have an agenda, and an agenda is only good as long as you have a majority. If he loses the House, his agenda's over. When he gets out of office, if you don't have a strong plan that's articulated, that you get buy-in, not just from the House and the Senate or the Republicans and Democrats, but for the American people, it's a windsock in the wind. It's going to change in the next election. And this is where, you've heard me talk about this over and over again, these arguments, they come down to Republicans, Democrats, and then it gets broken down into racial issues, white, black, conservative, liberal, and it just keeps getting bifurcated more and more. And that's where you need to throw all that out. Everything we do from government should be to make America stronger, not just for the now, but 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And we have these internal fights here, and we take our eyes off of what's going on with China, what's going on with Russia. It's just like when President Trump said, we're going to start doing nuclear testing again. How long did it take for Vladimir Putin said, yeah, we're going to start that too. So now you start doing these things that you shouldn't even be doing if you stay focused on where you want to go as a nation. And, and I understand President Trump wants this done, but if you set a precedent of getting rid of the filibuster or not the cloture, because the cloture you need, but if you get rid of that and take it away, then that gives the other side to do the same thing. And I think that's a very dangerous thing. I think we wouldn't be in this situation had Congress done their job and got their budgets, or not the budget, but the appropriations done and passed. This would be for naught. I mean, there wouldn't be this argument.
Yeah, and the thing is, with President Trump, I get his thinking, and I understand that. But if we are dependent on President Trump's agenda to save America, if it totally falls on that, as much as I support the president, we're probably doomed anyway. Because if you're talking about hundreds of years, and here's the thing, and I don't mean to be a doom and gloom guy, but if you look at history, and they say history repeats itself, there's never been a forever country. There's never been that. Do I want America to last for eons and to my, great, all the way down the line?
Right.
Absolutely. Do I want this experiment to last forever? Yes. The odds are it probably won't, but I want it to last as long as it possibly can. And but if we're going to have a future, we're going to have to deal with the ups and downs as time comes. And ultimately, the responsibility, and this is what people don't seem to understand, Ted, in my opinion, the ultimate responsibility to save America and how long we will last is up to us.
It really is.
It's not up to President Trump. It's not up to Ronald Reagan. It's not up to, Chuck Schumer or Ocasio-Cortez. It's up to us because we're the ones that put them up there.
Thank God it's not up to AOC.
But it's not up to
Schumer.
it's not up to any one individual.
It's not, and that's how fleeting what we have is, and that's why it's so important that we get people focusing on the direction of the country and painting that picture and leading a country in that direction instead of having these silly political fights. And I give President Trump credit for changing the direction of the country, but we need to do more, and it comes down to us, we the voters. We're the ones that are in charge of this. And to think that the people in New York have voted in an avowed Democrat socialist, which is really a communist, they just not bold enough to say that. That tells you where we are in these hubs, these big urban areas around the nation. And the thing that people need to understand is toxic as it was with the Biden-Harris administration, all the wokeism, all the transgenderism, the boys and girls sports and vice versa. All that we think went away. The DEI, the wokeness in the universities, we think that went away with Trump. No, it didn't. It's on the back burner. If they get back in power, it's going to come back with spades.
Yeah.
I mean, they are going to throw everything at it, and it's going to change the fundamental factory of how this country was made and what it is. And it goes back to what Obama said, the fundamental transformation of America. It didn't go away. It's just been put on the back burner until they get in charge, and then they're going to run with this. And then you throw AI in there, and I sent you that article where the programmers today, the AI, they've run studies on this. It's put the white male Christian at the very bottom of the list of the demographics. And these are people programming things that are going to run AI programs in the future. And I think we got a link on that on our website. Look at that, because that's the direction we go. And if you get a very liberal, progressive government, they're going to promote that much more.
Yeah, well, I saw something over the week that shows me how scary AI is, and I'm not scared about the
that
AI.
That picture of Nancy Pelosi was scary.
Oh,
enough.
Yeah, that's scary enough as it is. But the thing that scares me the most about AI is how dumb people are, because
how dumb I am when it comes to that.
Well,
stuff.
the example I use, and I'm not trying to promote any one particular show, but I actually like that show, The Curse of Oak Island, where they're investigating that treasure and all, and they theorize that the Knights Templar might have deposited treasure here, right? So they show these videos. They've been doing it for several years of the Knights Templar, like invading Jerusalem or fleeing France or something. They're on horseback, right? But now they've had to put underneath the video, this is AI generated. That's scary to me, because that tells me there are people who think that's a real video of, 3,000 years ago when the Knights Templar were like invading somewhere. The fact that you have to put a disclaimer,
doesn't surprise me, John.
Disclaimer on that is not a real video.
Well,
scares me more than anything, Ted.
People think Jon Stewart and Colbert were real news media.
That's true. That's true. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this potential filibuster and all, killing the filibuster. But President Trump, one of the things he's pushing for, because this is kind of at the center of what the Democrats were holding out for, if you will, in the government shutdown, centers around Obamacare and the subsidies, the COVID subsidies. President Trump wants the Senate to kill Obamacare and send the cash directly to the American people. And, that's an interesting proposal. Here's the one thing I'll say, and I'd like your opinion on all of this, Ted, is that name me a program or anything that government pours money into that has actually lowered costs. Because college, one of the reasons why college is so expensive now, dramatically more so, is all the student loan money that's going in there. They say, we got this free money coming in, we just keep raising our prices. The same thing with grocery stores, because of all the people on the SNAP programs and all that kind of stuff. So when government puts money somewhere, it always makes the prices higher. And it's clearly happened with healthcare. So what are your thoughts on that aspect of it? I know I'm putting a lot on you.
No,
Ted.
I mean, I think everybody knows where I stand on this. When I ran for Congress, it was to get rid of Obamacare, the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which it's not. And you remember the selling pitch: if you like your doctor, you can keep it. If you like your insurance, you can keep it. BS. That didn't happen. Your premiums have gone down. Ours have gone up every year since I've been there. In fact, when I was in Congress, we had Blue Cross Blue Shield in the private sector. That policy got canceled when I was in Congress, not by choice of me. It just got canceled. So I was forced onto the whatever the government gives you on, and I think it's a form of the Obamacare program. So when government wants to take something over and tell you it's going to cost you less, run, because it's a joke. And, you know, the thing with the subsidies, John, the subsidies that they're arguing over now were not there prior to COVID. And when COVID came, the Democrats were in charge of the House, the Senate, and the White House, and they voted this bill in to put subsidies in because the economy was so bad, right or wrong, to help fund health care. What they saw was a doubling of people getting subsidies from 13 million to 26 million, over 26 million, that were getting subsidies. Now, the interesting thing, John, is people before COVID were paying their health insurance. They didn't need subsidies. They were paying that. But COVID comes along, government programs, we're going to give you some extra money to make it easier. So here we are post-COVID. The economy's doing well. There's still some people struggling out there, like that lady I told you at Dollar General. But the economy's doing well, and so these the subsidies that the Democrats voted in to end December of 2025, the subsidy part that wasn't there pre-COVID is the part that they want to go back, and they're saying, well, if you do that, you're going to throw all these people off of health care. And this is the political BS that people are tired of, but they don't understand it because, you know, you get them on TV and they sound so compelling selling this stuff, and it's a joke. And this, you know, the truth of it, 85% of Americans had health care prior to Obamacare. 85% of the people in America had health care, either through their employer or on their own. The 15% that didn't, there's three different categories in there, and I won't go into that, but the bottom line is, if I've got a program where 85% of the people are doing what they should be doing, having health care on their own, why don't we focus on the 15% that don't and see how many we can get into that insurance pool instead of screwing the whole thing up for everybody, and then you get this monstrosity that doesn't work. And out of this is one of the reasons that you don't have the option with insurance companies, because they've killed the market.
Well, you know, they talked about the Democrats having a great week, and who knows if this vote last night was great for them or not. But somebody who had an interesting week, I would call it, is Marjorie Taylor Greene.
This is interesting.
And she is talking about Obamacare, and she's for repealing it as well. But it's interesting to me who she blames for Obamacare. So I want to play this video, and I think you'll find it fascinating, her thought process in this, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Democrats passed Obamacare, but yet the Republicans have never done anything to correct the problems that exist with it. And I blame my own party. That's absolutely wrong. And I don't think it's an easy thing to fix. However, it's something that we should have a plan for. And Mike Johnson, for a month now, cannot give me a single policy idea. And I'm angry about that.
Is this your understanding of Obamacare, that it raises?
Here's why I'm angry. The Democrats.
So there you have Marjorie Taylor Greene. Interesting, she was on Bill Maher's show, and then she followed that up, of all things, with being on The View, and they praised her as like woman power and all that kind of stuff.
Here's your sign. If they praise you on The View.
There you go. So first of all, let's ask you, is she right to blame the GOP? And secondly, what is she up to right now? What is she trying to do, Ted, to be on Bill Maher and The View basically in the same week?
John, you're talking like she has an ulterior motive. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm
politics.
beginning to think she just might. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, number one, she goes on and says the Republicans don't have a plan. The only way you can fix the health care insurance in this country is get rid of Obamacare and build new. And that was the big thing, that last bill that Paul Ryan brought up that tried to convince President Trump his first term that this was going to replace Obamacare. No, it didn't. And that's why I voted against that. And so we've been locked into that program ever since 2010 when they passed it in the heat of the night on, I think it was December 24th or 25th, it was Christmas Eve. A 2,500-page bill that nobody read, and they had to pass it to see how it worked. And so we've been stuck with that. So Marjorie Taylor Greene to come in and say the Republicans don't have a plan. The plan is to get rid of it. Let's go back to having incentivize the employers to have health insurance. And that's a whole nother discussion because that didn't happen until 1946, I think it was, when Congress passed a bill that said employers could deduct the cost of health plans. And that's how we got employer health care. But for Marjorie Taylor Greene to say that the Republicans don't have a plan, when I was in there, there was 3 or 4 different health care plans that were presented. Leadership would never bring them up for a vote.
Yeah, I mean, far be it from me to necessarily question her motivation, but I think it's pretty obvious that her motivation is not to move up within the ranks of the House and possibly in the Senate if she were to run, or because she's not going to be celebrated within the Republican Party.
No, she's not.
And she's not going to ever be celebrated in the Democratic Party. They're just going to use her. And she's no dummy, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I actually think she's just trying to set herself up to be basically a podcaster one day or something.
She may be on The View. I don't know, an influencer. The numbers on Obamacare, this is interesting. Before the enhanced subsidies, this is for the COVID subsidies, both subsidized and unsubsidized, Obamacare enrollment was stable. When COVID-19 came out, again, they went from 13 million people drawing subsidies in 2019. That number over doubled to 26.7 in the first quarter alone. And the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, has said that a $300 billion increase in the cost to taxpayers over the next 10 years, and that's going to have another 6.9 individuals in Obamacare exchanges. And the funny thing is, John, people are saying how expensive insurance is today, and they're complaining about it, and we have Obamacare that was going to fix all that. It's a broken system. Get rid of it.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to totally shift gears here right now because a good friend of mine wrote an open letter to President Trump, which is now posted on our Facebook sites. And that good friend of mine is none other than the captain here, Ted Yoho. And before I turn it over for Ted to explain why he did this, I want to give his bona fides, as I like to say. Ted is not only a large animal veterinarian, but he specialized in food animal veterinarian. In other words, he worked a lot with cattle and other food-producing types of ranching. He's obviously a former member of Congress, but not only that, but he served on the House Agricultural and Foreign Affairs Committee. So this is a gentleman that knows the ins and outs of the beef cattle industry, which is what we're going to specifically...
From the inside and out.
From the north end to the south end. He knows it. And so, Ted, you wrote open letter to President Trump. As I say, it's on our Facebook sites. You can read. Please react to it. We'd love to hear your opinions on it. But Ted, why did you write this letter, and what is the essence of what you're trying to convey?
I appreciate that opportunity there, John. Agriculture is dear to my heart. I mean, that's something I've worked in all my life through. Since I was 15 years old, I worked in agriculture. And, the toil that these people put through, the farmers and ranchers, the producers, the people working on the farms, the laborers, I've worked with all those people side by side those. And when I heard President Trump say they were going to start importing Argentinian beef to bring down the cost of American beef, I'm like, he's way off base here. At best, it'll be a temporary drop in the prices here. But what they're talking about importing is the ground beef and the chuck, the lower cuts of the beef that go to the 4 big feedlots and packers, and that's in a hamburger form. It goes in there, and once it comes to this country, it becomes a produce or a product of the United States of America. So there's no way of delineating, is this foreign beef or not? That's one problem. The other thing is we have lost over 600,000 ranchers, just ranchers, not talking about produce farmers and things like that. 600,000 ranchers have been lost in the last 40 plus years. And so we're down to about 623 ranchers today. Our cattle numbers are down 25 million head. And so there's a supply side shortage. The price of beef went up, but it didn't go up overnight. It didn't go up because these ranchers drove up the costs, or the packers drove up the costs. The prices started going up when Biden came into office. If you'll remember, price of diesel went up $1 to $2 per gallon. Diesel touches everything in the economy, from the guy out there fertilizing, because fertilizer comes from petroleum products, the majority of it, the transportation of driving the tractor across the field to pick up the hay, to cut the hay and pick up the hay, to put it on the truck to take that to the farm. A bale of hay, when I came into Congress, a round roll of Bahia grass hay here in Florida, is about 1,000, 1,200 pounds. It ran for $35 to $40 a bale. Today, that same bale is $100 to $150. Now, that happened because of the price of fuel and labor and inflation and all that. And so, in the meantime, the cattle ranchers are dropping, and they're going away. And when a cattle rancher goes out of business, that's production gone for the rest of our life in our lifetime, because they're not going to come back in business. So now the cattle ranchers are making pretty good money, but they've had very bad years. I mean, they can sell their cattle and they can get a good price a couple years ago, what they thought was a good price, but they break about even if they're lucky. This year, they're making good money. But if we bring in foreign beef, it's going to suppress our market here. And if we suppress it here, there's going to be more people go out of business. And when that happens, we become dependent on other countries. And George Washington knew this back in the 1700s. A nation that is not food secure is not a secure nation. And so my question is this, President Trump: if you understand the beef market, if you understand agriculture, if you bring in foreign beef, it's going to suppress our producers here. It's going to run more of them out of the business. And then what happens is we become dependent on other nations. And what we really ought to do is incentivize young farmers to go into the business, help them with loans, programs to get into business, low-cost loans. And I'm not saying give them money, give them grants, give them the opportunity to go into business, and then use the tools the United States government has, the Development Finance Corporation or the Millennial Challenge Corporation, and help Argentina build an economy that will live past President Milei, and develop an economy there. And let's work at increasing their economy through trade, but not by bringing in their beef. And then the other thing is, it's not the same standard or quality as American beef produced by our ranchers here in America.
Yeah, well, when you were saying that, and I agree.
Did I trigger another thought?
Yeah, you did, because you pointed out something that sparked a thought in me. That, when you look at the President Trump's agenda so far in his first year in office, one of the big things he's doing is to make America self-reliant. In other words, not depend on the minerals, the rare minerals to come in, to have not dependent on Chinese drugs to come in. I'm talking about prescription drugs, not dependent on oil to be imported, to actually be an exporter. But in this one case, if he goes through with what he's talking about, we could potentially certainly become dependent for our beef on something like Argentina or other places, which is contrary to everything else he's doing, really. That is an interesting way to look at it.
It is, and I admire all the good things he's done. I mean, he's got a different way of doing politics than we've ever seen in our life. But there's areas that he's hurting us just as much. And what he's doing with rare earth minerals in this country is awesome, because we've been dependent on that. And I railed against that when I was in Congress probably 10 years ago, talking about how China has cornered that market. Well, they are finally focusing on that now, to where we will not be indebted to another nation on rare earth minerals that drive everything in our economy. And then the other thing is fuel, petroleum product security. We should never be indebted to another country like an Iran, Russia, Venezuela, any of these countries for energy. We should have a policy an American first policy is energy security. And we should focus, that should be the policy of the United States. I don't care how you want to do it. The goal is energy security for the United States. And this comes down to our food, John. And the USMCA was a replacement of NAFTA, the United States, Mexico, Canada Free Trade Agreement. And it was a disaster for southern farmers because our southern farmers, Georgia, Florida, Arizona, New Mexico, the southern states, they had the same growing season as Mexico. And I'll give you an example of how detrimental this was. Back in the 1970s and 80s, Florida had over 300 tomato growers. We supplied over 65% of the tomatoes throughout the United States. After NAFTA, that number had dropped down to about 100 tomato producers here in Florida. With USMCA, that number is we've got about 30 active tomato growers in Florida. Now think about that. That product are coming in from Mexico. The green peppers, the cucumbers, squash, green beans. We used to be the leaders in that. In fact, Florida led the majority of the nation in a lot of those produce products. Now, those farms are going out of business here. I mean, they're going out of business. And again, in Florida, if a farm goes out of business, what they're going to plant next is a condominium or a retirement village. And what do you want? Do you want that, or do you want agricultural enterprises going on? And then it pushes us closer to being food insecure. And these are policies that President Trump can avoid, and he can incentivize farming, bringing new people into farming.
Yeah, we only got a few.
That's a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. That's why you're the expert, man. You're the professor on that kind of stuff. But he's a captain, professor, all that. I want to ask you one more quick question on it because, President Trump has been accused of having an enormous ego, right?
No, is that true?
And
Tell me that's not so.
He definitely does. And I'm not being critical of that because anybody that is going to be a big-time leader, generally the ego thing comes with it. So, he is known to favor people who favor him.
Yep.
So I ask you this, do you think that it plays into Argentina specifically because he likes that president there? We know he supported Bolsonaro, I think his name is in Brazil.
Right.
Right. So is
Bolsonaro.
Is he actually playing somewhat favorites with the president of Argentina because the president of Argentina has got some problems, but he's been very praising of President Trump? Do you think that's a part of it?
Oh, absolutely. He wants to be a disruptor of technology or of the status quo. And Bolsonaro was that. Of course, Bolsonaro now is in prison. I think he's got a life sentence or a 26-year sentence, which would be a life sentence at his age. And President Milei in Argentina is another guy from the outside that came into politics. And, he's going to circle around those guys and have them as friends. Same with the president of Hungary. The same type of thing. He likes that kind of person that's willing to be bold, brash, and stand up against the status quo. And really, we need that right now. If we didn't do that, Kamala Harris would be your president right now. God bless America that she didn't win.
And the Iranians would probably have the nuclear bomb.
Well, that's right. And you know what? Russia would have had all of Ukraine by now.
Absolutely.
They sure would have.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're pretty much out of time. We appreciate you listening to our show. Please support our sponsors. Become a sponsor. We definitely need your help so we can continue to educate, motivate, and activate people. And Ted, I appreciate that letter you wrote. And once again, it is on all of our Facebook sites, our Political Pirate Podcast, John Martin Talks, the Ward Scott Files, and Media Measures Global. Those 4 sites have the letter on it. Please comment on it because we'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Like what we're doing, share what we're doing. Ted, close us out, sir.
No, I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody listening. I enjoy doing this show with John. We feel like we are putting good information out there for you to help educate people. We'd love to have your comments. We'd love to have your support. I'll be flying up to D.C. if TSA is working. God bless them. Next week, I go up on the 18th and 19th, and I'll bring you a report back from up there. And, keep the faith. People, a lot of times when there's all this conflict going on and all this, just the argument in politics, people get, like you said, you feel almost depressed. Stay true to the mission. This country was founded on the right principles, and it's up to us, this generation, to preserve it, to pass it on to the next generation, and it's only going to be happen with your help. So we appreciate you, and John, I'll see you Friday.
Absolutely. Peace out, everybody.
Y'all take care.